That's better. All right, let me share my screen one more time. All right, so from a news standpoint, news and events, we were talking about this a little bit. Our own Peter Ingersoll is a celebrity speaker at this event that it happened last week, but the good thing is you can go back and catch a replay of the tracks. It was a Cadence Amplify event. Peter, you want to talk a little bit about the event itself and kind of what some of the topics were and kind of what you presented? Do you mind doing that?
Yeah, it was so the Cadence theme and block package plugins, which has really gained in popularity and notoriety and all. The team pretty quickly put together this day-long presentation, 2 tracks, live stream discussions. They put out an invite for people to speak. I applied and they accepted. It kind of focused on using Cadence, but most of the presentations were applicable to a wide range of things, not just like how to use Cadence, but there was an accessibility talk. There's kind of business and marketing creative. So it was a wide range, 2 tracks. I opened up on track 2 talking about actually the thing I did on our last meetup, which was, and what we're going to do tonight, which is use WordPress for our slides for presentations, and just kind of given that idea of, with tools like WordPress and enhanced by Cadence and the Cadence block collections, that, instead of going off and doing PowerPoint and creating PDFs and then sending all that kind of stuff out, it's like, why not use website? So that was my idea. They liked it. I presented. At least I know one person who's on this call who thought it was okay. Sue, thank you very much. And yeah,
he was great. He was great.
Thanks. So I think it went well, considering how quickly things came together, and it was the first that kind of talk that I've done. So yeah, other than the practice I get here every month,
right.
Month after month kind of thing. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I put the link to it in the chat window. So even though it's happened already, you can go back and still watch replays of the tracks, which is really nice. So then take a look. Oh, cool. Thanks, Peter.
Yep.
So the other one coming up kind of right around the corner this weekend is the Phoenix WordCamp. So this one, I know it's in person in Phoenix, but I did see on their website they're saying that sessions will be streamed and recorded. I didn't quite see any info about it yet. I looked at this yesterday, so I guess more to come on that, but you can follow them or take a look at the site over the weekend and see how they're going to share those streams and recordings. But anyway, this WordCamps are usually great to check out, and obviously if you can't be there in person, then having a past recording is a decent thing to go back and look at. So those were the main events I have, like I said, coming up or past. So tool or plugin spotlight. You got something for us this month, Peter? And you're on mute. You're still on mute, Peter.
How about that?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if somebody had a question or a comment. All righty. So what do you see?
I see plugins.
Great. Okay. So I've discovered this plugin a little while back. I think it actually was featured by on iThemes, the iThemes company. They do a couple of free webinar events a month. One is on WordPress News. It was actually today. And then they also do sort of a plugin roundup. I can't remember if this was there or if this is where I discovered it, but there is this plugin that has very few users, and we've talked about, why, what to look out for, but I'm more and more looking at kind of new plugins and seeing what they offer and knowing the code gets vetted and some of the things, there aren't any alarms about it. I just think it's buried along, with everything else. But there's this plugin called Admin and Site Enhancements. Here's what's great about admin and site enhancements. I will show you. It is not active on this site. This is our animal shelter site. For people who are new plugins, you go into the plugin section, your admin, you go to add new, and then you do a search to find it. Sometimes the search is a little wonky, by the way. You kind of, it's not like the search on the repository is not often forgiving for things like, you know, spaces and things like that. But anyway, this plugin here, admin and site enhancements, what it does, and I'll go back to my installed plugins and now activate it. What this does is it takes all these little things that are in other plugins and just puts them in a simple interface for you to use. So it is now active. I'm going to go to the configure section. We won't possibly be able to go into all the details, but this is just to give you an idea. It lives under your tool. Once it's active under tools, it's called enhancements. And basically you can go through this and see all of the things that you can do. Instead of a page and post duplication plugin, you load this, you turn on page and post duplications, and now your pages and posts will be able to be duplicated. There's a media replacement. You turn it on and now you can replace media, and it tells you exactly what it does. Easily replace any type of media file with a new one while retaining the link. So if you had to replace an image, but you didn't want to go back and figure out where and all the media replacement, that, you know, that one little toggle switch, turn that on. The ability to upload SVG files, which typically you need a plugin, like a safe SVG, which trims code, and the list literally goes on and on. Being able to show things, hide things, changing your login information. It's a place to discover, especially for people who are admins who have a little bit more experience and maybe find that, you know, they've got a number of plugins. It even has, I don't recommend this, but some, you know, instead of the classic one, the disable Gutenberg, which then uses, you know, disables the block editor, and on some level of security, so limiting the login attempts if you don't already have that. You know, it's just this really interesting turn on a feature plugin. It's called admin and site enhancements.
Who was the author? You say, Peter, was it an individual or was it a group?
Yeah, it's he's got a number, this Bowo person. I think he's in Thailand. And what's interesting about, he's got a number of these plugins that are all that are similar, and they are similarly simple. This idea that you just, I want this feature, you know, just as it shows in, and I want to turn on an option, SMTP email delivery, right? We talk about loading up a plugin to do that. You turn that on, you get your option boxes for putting in your SMTP credentials, and you know that works. So it's a pretty amazing little plugin that is really just, you know, think about like a whole bunch of code snippets that you're just turning on or off. So it's pretty interesting, and so far it's worked. I haven't totally beat it up, but it's worked, and I think some of the folks on the call might find this as an interesting experiment at least, to see if it, you know, kind of cleans up the number of plugins you have and just be able to turn things on or off as you need them.
Can you throw that link into the chat, Peter, after, so we can look at it? Yeah, it's very neat. Like I said, that's, yeah, it seems like it could replace quite a few plugins that do
a lot of
these
plugins.
one trick pony plugins, basically.
Exactly.
All right, good.
All right, I will stop the share and you can have the screen.
All right, so let me share my screen again. All right, so here's the thing that we're doing a little bit different. So as Peter said, that the talk he gave at the Cadence conference was around how to better create slide presentations and share them with kind of a global audience. So if you go out, and I think we've had this site, I think we've shared this before for something, right, Peter? Is that the, I don't recall, but anyway, we have hartfordwp.com, and we'll make sure now that we advertise the site on our Meetup group and our Facebook as well. But the thought is this will be kind of the unified place where you can see our slide presentation. So if you, let's say for whatever reason you don't want to go on Facebook, like many people don't, or more people don't these days, at least you can come out here and see them. And again, it's something you don't have to download a PDF and forget where it is. You have a one-stop shopping place to go see it. So great idea. And again, we're putting in practice, starting with tonight's presentation. So Topic tonight, get ready for WordPress 6.2. So WordPress 6.2, as far as I know, and I forgot to include this in the slides, shame on me, I believe it's still targeted for release. Is it next Tuesday? I think the 28th.
Yeah, the 28th, a week from now.
Yeah. And right now, last time I checked this morning, there's a release candidate 2, RC2 is the thing I was testing with. So it's coming up. Again, so the idea here is we're going to share some of probably the things, the highlights of it, and kind of give our opinions around it. So tonight's agenda, we'll do some quick introductions of who we are. We'll talk about the WordPress roadmap and give some context if you haven't heard that. I think it's good to talk about where 6.2 fits into that and sort of what's next. So I'll spend, again, if we're splitting this up, let's say for like an hour-ish for our presentations, I'm going to try to do 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes on Site Editor. And I can always go back to it afterwards if people have more questions. And then I think the block editor and usability improvements is probably the thing I think more people will actually want to use hands-on. So we'll spend a little bit more time of the presentation on that. Then again, like I said, we'll do a wrap-up as well. Real quick, who am I? Ray, I'm one of the co-organizers of the Hartford WordPress group. I've been in IT career 25 plus years, so that's probably 28 plus years now. I was a software architect and software developer, worked for some large companies, been using WordPress for around 7+ years. Self-employed as a website developer working with local businesses now. Live in Newington, Connecticut, married, no kids, and I am a geek. Peter, I'll click on yours. There you go.
And I am Peter Ingersoll. I am co-organizer of Hartford WordPress. I became that just a couple months after Ray started, resurrected this group. I've got about 25 plus years working on the web, which I was lucky enough to be involved pretty early on. I'm a marketing, communications, design, and tech guy, not a coder, but I do dabble with code, but mainly deconstructing and tweaking, that type of thing. I worked at the Hartford Current for 11 years, which was where my ability to, or where I was able to first start working on the web. So that was a great opportunity. I've been about 10 years using WordPress. I'm self-employed, and I'm married, 2 adult kids. I live in South Windsor, Connecticut, and I am a self-proclaimed WordPress admin and DIY advocate, because there's a lot of WordPress developer advocates, and I am an admin and DIY advocate. So I just gave myself that title.
You should also mention you're on the Learn WordPress.
Yeah, yeah. I work with the Learn team, and I'm actually looking at some of the other teams. One of the teams that I'm really very interested in right now is, well, I'm trying to discover where it is, but it's the team that's working on WordPress.org itself, not only just a redesign, but I'm very interested in the functionality, because I think that affects admins and DIY people who are trying to find stuff and can't always. So yeah, I'm very interested in the .org organization itself, the organization of .org. So
yeah, great. All right, so let's start off. I think this is good, setting some context around, because a lot of times, especially WordPress, there's a lot of releases, and I know if you're not one of the people who keeps up with them, it's kind of hard to figure out, all right, what does this release mean to me? Should, where does it fit into the bigger picture? Well, back in maybe 2020 or so, I think, or 2021, this kind of slide, or this roadmap was presented, I think, as part of WordCamp US by Matt Mullenweg, and it talked about these different phases of WordPress. So for some of us, and I was just kind of joking earlier too, like we started this iteration of the Hartford WordPress meetup back in 2018, and the first presentation I gave is, Gutenberg. Welcome to Gutenberg. So 5 years ago is kind of where that started. So for people who are kind of more familiar now with the block editor, in those 5 years, I'm sure you'll, if you've been watching it throughout these different releases, it's changed quite a bit, and kind of where it started versus where it is today is really pretty drastic. So that was kind of phase 1, was changing the overall editor within WordPress. So that classic editor, which you probably still see on certain sites, wasn't really wasn't friendly to new users and just wasn't, I think, robust enough for where they wanted WordPress to go. So that was really phase one, was concentrating on the block editor and additional usability improvements. Phase two really started around 2019, and that included the idea of full site editing. And I'll talk about what that means, the definition of full site editing in a second. But things like block patterns, block directory, and block-based themes, this idea of customization. So, phase one, the idea was just making it easier to edit posts and pages, those kind of things. Phase two went beyond posts and pages and said, let's, allow people to customize through site more fully. So this release, WordPress 6.2, is really the end, air quotes, the end of that phase of phase two, because now phase three and then beyond, phase three on the roadmap is this idea of collaboration. So allowing multiple users to work on a WordPress site together is, authoring, think about like in terms of Google Docs and any of those kind of cloud applications. So WordPress today is a bit clunky in that sense of allowing multiple people to work on something. So the end of phase two is, I've heard a couple of people talking about with 6.2. That doesn't mean that the features are done. Just like Gutenberg wasn't done in 2019 when phase one ended. Hardly. It took many years, I think, for improvements to happen. So, again, it's just something to keep in mind. Even though you may hear places where it says, yeah, this, phase two is complete. It's complete in the sense of now I think they're going to have more resources working on phase three, but they're not abandoning these features from what's in 6.2. Peter, anything to add on that from what you've heard? Or
no, I think you've got it. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the site editor. So this is what we used to really call a full site editor, and it's kind of been rebranded, I guess, as the site editor. And I had to go back and look at this a little bit from our past presentations, because we do try to cover the point releases. So I think the first time the site editor, full site editor, was introduced was in WordPress 5.9, unless I'm mistaken, or someone please correct me. But so it's been around for a while, for several releases of WordPress. So what is it? As I said, if you think about the block editor, if you're familiar with that, or formerly known as Gutenberg, the block editor allowed you to edit posts and pages. The idea of a site editor was you could edit all parts of your website without having to learn how to code or create a child theme. So again, in the past, if you wanted to, let's say, change an archive page layout, you would have to either know PHP and be able to go in there, create a template in PHP, and generally save that in your child theme. So, you just need to have some development skills in order to do things like that. Even headers and footers, I mean, old themes, believe it or not, you'd have to go and actually go into code and change it. I mean, it got a lot more modern themes have started exposing that, the ability to edit those things. But in the past, you really had to be more of a developer. So what, again, when we say all parts of your website, what do we mean? Headers, footers, navigation menus, archive pages, search result pages, all of those kind of templates. That's what it means by having a site editor, having the ability to use a tool kind of like the block editor to edit those parts of your website. It ultimately, the idea is it replaces what you could do through like the customizer. So the customizer has been part of WordPress for, I'm not sure even what release it was first introduced, but the idea is to kind of consolidate some of this functionality into a single tool, the site editor, rather than having the customizer, the menu tool, the widgets tool. Let's bring that all together into a single place, because those are all kind of site-related features. And the idea is having a place where you can work on like site-wide styling for the theme of your website. So, rather than just relying on, again, having to know CSS, etc., you have a place where you can actually change it across the board for your theme. Now, the important caveat with this is the site editor only works with block themes, and we'll show you a little bit about what a block theme looks like in a second. So if you're not using a block theme, a lot of ways you're going to install, or when 6.2 rolls out, you're going to look at this and say, so what? Or you're not going to see any of the things we're talking about. And in fact, a lot of modern, modern themes like Cadence, which, again, we built a lot of our sites in, or other page builder type themes, Elementor, Divi, a lot of those themes, in Astra, et cetera, they already allow some form of site editing. In fact, as we talk about the pros and cons of where we are in my opinion, with the site editor right now, I think some of these are still, they're much more mature than I think where the site editor is with 6.2. Some of those tools let you do a lot more granular control, and I'll show some examples of that later if we have some time. So again, what's the big deal about the site editor? The fact is they're building this now into WordPress core. So Cadence, the one that we've been using in a lot of our projects here to build sites, Cadence, a lot of those features of site editing are really part of the pro feature set. So you'll find that a lot of times the free themes don't necessarily give you that level of control of changing templates, etc. So by pulling that now into core, the idea is that you sort of give it to everybody for free. And like I said, if you think about where Gutenberg came from with the block editor, the site editor today is still, it's very early days in my opinion. But I think I have hope just seeing from what happened with Gutenberg 5 years later, it's completely different, I think, than what they first released. So I'm hoping the same thing for site editor. Peter, feel free to chime in if you have any other site editor comments or not.
No, the whole thing with the site editor is many of us are still looking to get a theme that is already designed versus kind of designing from scratch. But there's more and more demonstrations out there that really do show how powerful it can be in a relatively simple set of steps. So it's practice, and it's, build it off on the side and work on it. But, the idea of having something that's prepackaged versus, yeah, prepackaged, but pretty much, you're starting from scratch and building off of that. It's a different way of thinking for a lot of folks, but many who have experimented have been kind of start having fun with it. Not everybody, but
yeah. All right, so we'll talk about what's changed in 6.2. So as I said, the site editor, full site editing, parts of it have been in WordPress since 5.9. Again, you may not have noticed it if you haven't played around with a block theme. But in 6.2, some of the big changes is, first off, the fact that the beta tag is removed. So in the past, and I'll show this when we do the demo, in the past, if you were using a theme, let's say like the, some of the WordPress themes that are installed, like 2023 or 2022, one of those, some of those were block themes, and you would see the site editor at that time would have a little flag next to it saying beta, just kind of warning you that this is a beta feature, it's still going to change. Well, now with 6.2, that's been removed. So they're feeling more comfortable at least saying that, hey, this is no longer in beta. Again, it's not complete, but it's beyond the beta mode. Some of these things will probably make more sense as I show them in the demo. So the browse mode, they've really improved, I think, with 6.2, the ability to view all your templates and template parts. It was a bit clunkier or a bit more limited in the previous 6.1 release. So I think that's improved quite a bit from a usability standpoint. As part of that browse mode, one of the features now is you can actually preview a template in different sizes. So you can drag your window to see what will this look like in smaller screen sizes, etc. So again, I'll demo that. I think they've also addressed one of my personal concerns when I first started playing with the site editor back in 5.9. It was the user experience just felt very confusing. To me, it felt very different than the rest of the block editor. The block editor now, I think, has come a long way. It's become much more polished. The site editor, when it first came out, even me, somebody who's built templates quite a bit, I'm like, I didn't know where things were, and I was always afraid of breaking things, etc. So they've added some enhancements there, like just little things, like we'll see when I show the demo, of just highlighting template parts with an icon and colors when you're editing, just to help you visually, figure out, oh, this is a template part, this is my template, and just that separation. Again, a little thing, but I think it makes a big difference. The navigation block, I probably won't show that in the main part of the demo. Again, if we have time afterwards, if people are interested, I can spend more time on that. But that's the block you use to build menus. In my opinion, still needs quite a bit of work. I would be uncomfortable building a complex menu with it. It's good for simple menus. So I'll demo that a little bit. And the usability of that, I think, has improved quite a bit. Classic widgets import, I may not have time to show this, but the idea was if you had built a widget, let's say, or your theme had a widget, on your site, and you've now using a block theme, you don't want to lose that widget. So there is a way to import that into your template parts, so you don't lose what that widget was doing. And then new categories of patterns added for header and footer. So that's the idea of being able to, again, democratize the ability for people to switch between different header and footer styles. So again, you don't need to be a coder necessarily to try out different styling. And that leads me into the other big part of full site editing or site editing is global styles. So this was also, as I said, was introduced in at least 6.1, if not earlier. But there have been some improvements to it. So one of the improvements is if you're previewing what a global style looks like, it was a little hard to tell. The old view used to be you would just see a portion of your web page. So you kind of, you couldn't picture what these different styling options would look like. Well, now it zooms it out. So you can see, if you're changing colors and fonts and all that, it'll show you that in like a kind of skinny down view of your site. And again, I'll try to preview that or demo that, I should say. In my opinion, this one, Style Book, is probably one of the coolest things. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes in the future. So it'll make more sense when I show it in the demo. But the idea is, as I said earlier, the thought is that if you want to set styles across the board for your website globally, not going in individually, block by block, etc., this is the way that you can do that and see all the blocks in your theme, see how they're styled, and quickly go into them and change them. And again, that applies across your theme. So from a conceptual standpoint, the ideal way would be, let's say if you're creating a site from scratch, style books, those of us who've worked with website designers, again, I'm not a designer, I'm a developer, but I've worked with website designers who would give me something like that, either wireframes, but the idea is like a style book that says, hey, here's the colors we should use, here's the fonts, here's the et cetera, et cetera. This gives you a way to kind of do that now in WordPress. So you start off with the style book, you can set all your, configure all your blocks the way you want it to before you build the site. That really saves you from later on going back and changing things around and have to find every page where you used, a style and switching it. And the thought, and this goes back to, I think, also 6.1, the thought is once you're done styling a site, again, using one of these block themes, you could export those settings and export that customized theme style, and you can use that again on another site, again, another site that's using that same block theme, but it allows you to kind of easily interchange some styling. So again, that could be a quick way to start up a new site, pull in some of the styling, and then just tweak what you need to for that new site. And this is also the place in the full site editing where all these site-wide settings belong. They kind of got moved into this. So for example, if you want to change your logo or the site title, that kind of stuff, you do it in the style book, and I'll show you where that is. And finally, again, you don't lose that ability to add custom CSS. So as I said, remember this thing with site editing, there's no more customizer. Well, one thing I use the customizer for quite extensively is custom CSS. So where did that go? Well, now it's here. Now it's inside of global styles. So I'll show you where that went. I think that's it for slides. So let me jump into the demo. And again, I'm trying to, from a time standpoint, I'm going to try to keep this to like 10-15 minutes. And I apologize if it's going to seem a little bit rushed, but we can always go back.
Yeah, that's okay, Ray, because we'll walk through, and we've got a number of people on the call who we'll invite to also let us know their experience. I think what the points that you were just making, one of the things that I think is more intriguing for me now to work into the site editor is they're really working on making the whole editing experience more, not to use word, but holistic, kind of the thing you're clicking on is the thing you're editing. It's not so like, oh, I got to think in terms of all the pieces, even though they're referenced that way. Being able to see the site into those global styles, that style book, really kind of say, oh, I'm editing the site. So
right.
A lot of improvements there.
Right. So again, one of the first things I talked about was if you have a theme like Cadence, for example, right now, Cadence is not a block enabled theme. So the site editor doesn't work with Cadence. And again, I'm not sure from a roadmap standpoint if they're thinking of changing that and adopting some of the stuff over time, but so in order to test out some of these features, I've been using the 2023 theme, but there's other block enabled themes. And I think we showed this before, but if you're looking for one just to play around with, if you go to the WordPress repository, you add themes, they have tab in here for block themes. So all of these themes are ones that are taking advantage of the site editor. And obviously the one on top, probably the best one to play around with and learn, I'd say, is the 2023 theme. So that's what I have on this site. And as I said previously with WordPress 6.2, this editor tab, there was a big beta flag over here. So that's, like I said, that's been removed now. So that's one of the first things you'll notice. So let's go in. I'll do a couple of demos. I'll show a few of these things here. I probably won't get to all these features, but as I said, the first thing you'll notice is when you go into the editor, the view it puts you into now it's different. It's more this kind of browse view. So if you see, as I hover over the mouse here, even it's a little subtle, but it's kind of expanding as I move my mouse over. And the nice thing is now I can actually look from the nav bar on the side. I can look at all my different templates. So here's what my 404 page looks like. Here's what my my search results page is going to look like. Here's what I have a custom post type in here. So here's what the archive for that looks like. So it's a little bit better experience than with 6.1. The only view you had your templates was this thing, which just was a little bit clunky to navigate through, and a little clunky because you have to click on each one of them to see what template is this. So now they've made it a bit simpler that you can just visually click through them and see specifically what the template looks like. So that's one of the feature changes here. In addition, as I said, you now have the ability to actually do some screen resizing. So if I want to see, for example, this is the I think I'm on the page template. What's this going to look like on different screen sizes? You know, I move my cursor over. I have it changes size here. I can squeeze it down. I can look at it. Oh, this is what it'll look like on mobile. This will look like, etc. I kind of wish, and I listened to one of the talks about this. I kind of wish that they had some presets in here for mobile, desktop, etc. But it sounds like they're going away from that, or having fixed presets for different breakpoints. I get it, but to me, it's still, this is good. But I think it's not perfect. I think you still want to, do some testing on your own outside of this. So that's one of the features as well, having the ability to kind of navigate this. But let me show you. Let's see what in here. I have template parts. I'll go in and edit one of these guys, and let me do something simple. I'll do the cat one here. So this is one of the ones I created. So right now, okay. So visually, template parts like the header and footer, as you can see now, they've added a little icon to them. And then again, I'm red-green colorblind, so to me this looks purplish. I don't know what it looks like to you, but they've added some colors around it, at least, so you can kind of tell that, oh, this is a template part. So visually it distinguishes a bit. Accessibility-wise, I'm not sure if this passes the muster of our accessibility discussion last month, but anyway. And when you click on one of these template parts, because what I found very confusing with 6.1, when you're editing a template, this all looked the same to me. I'm like, well, what am I touching here? Am I going to break the wrong thing? Well, when I click on a header, as you can see, now it clearly states, oh, this is a template part. This is a footer template part. And this is a header template part. So there's a bold border around it. And you can see the icon is a bit different. It's this diamond thing. So it's a little thing. It's subtle, but I think it does help you at least navigate a little bit better to realize where you are. And template parts, let me show you that as well too. So the other thing is moving around is a little bit easier now. So if I want to get back to that view, the navigation sidebar, I just click on the WordPress icon up there. So I can hop around. And just for kicks, let me do a quick change in here. I'll change, I guess I can add something in here. So this is for my single instance of a cat custom post type. So right now I'm displaying post title, post content. I'll just add some dummy text underneath it. Let's just add, paragraph. Sorry, paragraph. Let's say here, here. So in my paragraph, let's say this thing. So if the one thing that was confusing me too with 6.1 is I've made a change to this template, but I haven't really saved it yet. If I go back here, sorry, I have my Zoom window blocking this. If I go back here, you can see now there's a save button down here as well. So if I forgot to click save when I was in the edit mode, I can still save my change over here. So, and this is one unsaved change. So a little usability thing, but I think it was just, it's making this experience a bit better rather than it's because it doesn't look exactly like the block editor. There's a lot of pieces in there that you're editing. So that was one change. Let's see, navigation block. I'll show a little bit of the navigation block just to show you what that looks like. So if I go into, let's go into just the home page, for example, or the single post, single, that's probably good enough. So up here, this header includes a navigation block. So, the gallery, hello world, et cetera, et cetera. This, as I said, now there's no longer appearance menu like you used to use in WordPress with the site editor. They've created a block here, which you can put anywhere, but in this case, it's being used in the header, this navigation block. What's changed with 6.2 is you only used to have the ability to manipulate it on this left nav bar, but now they've added it on the right nav bar, sidebar as well. So for example, if I want to move pages around, just like you do any other element in the block editor, I can just click this, move it up here, change it around. If I want to add something, so let's say I want to add another page link or custom link, etc., or I can add a social icon in here. So I'll just add a custom link and say, just like a hashtag or something, and then I have to rename it. So I can call it, what's the label? Testing 2. And now if I look at my link up here, let's see, cats and testing 2. Okay. So anyway, so that ability now to actually go in here and manipulate it just like you would normal blocks, so moving these things around. That's one of the new features. I think originally one thing did get changed in 6.2 where the navigation elements were also going to be here. They were also going to be in this section. So I think that's still in flux. So me personally, I still think that this piece of the navigation block sounds like it's still going to be changing a bit. So anyway, it may change, I think, over the next couple of releases or so. Classic widgets. So these I won't show because I want to show you more of the global styles, because I think that's probably the more interesting piece outside of the site editor. Any questions that popped up in the chat? Peter, I don't know if you're watching the chat.
No, Eagle made a comment about presets are still there in the preview mode. Eagle, I don't know if you wanted to expand.
Well, actually, it's called the view mode now.
Okay.
But if you edit a template, there's a view mode, and if you change it to mobile, then it's
right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So you have to go into the edit mode exactly to be able to see that.
If you click on a block, you can still edit.
Right. Yeah.
So there are your presets.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. So they're not here. You have to actually go in. So it's there. You're right. It's just an extra step you got to go into to change it. So this is much better. I think it's probably still gonna be refined, I would assume, over time. Global styles, or let me talk about global styles. So I'll go into, let's look at a single item page here. And again, I want to get out of that view, back to desktop. So the global styles option, I think, was included back again in 6.1 or so, but to get to it, you click on the styles icon up here. Again, you have to be inside of the site editor, inside of a template to see this. This is another one too that personally I would have loved to see global styles moved out somewhere here instead. Like you actually have to go in and edit something to do it first, unless I'm missing something, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But once you click on this, I'll show you the browse styles. So this has already been around for a little while. The thing that's changed is, so right now this theme is offering me a couple of pre-built styles. So, changing the fonts or colors, background colors, etc. So if I want to see what other options I have for this theme, if I click on browse styles, these are the ones I can switch to canary, I can switch to aubergine, the eggplant one, et cetera, et cetera. So your mileage may vary in how much you like some of these, but the thing that's different now with 6.1 was, I'm sorry, with 6.2 is, as you saw, my page now got shrunk down. So I can actually see at a page level, I have a very short page, so it probably isn't that impressive, but if you had a very long page and you wanted to see what these different styles would look like, you kind of get a mini preview of that. So that's one of the changes that they've introduced. But what I think is probably more impressive is the styles book. So to get the style book, that's this little, looks like an eyeball kind of to me. I don't know what it was meant to represent, but when you click on this, this is now showing all of the styles for this site, including all the blocks and the styles for those blocks. So when you click on this style book, you'll see there's several tabs up here. And first is showing me typography. So if you think about, in some ways, this is a replacement for the customizer. So many themes in the customizer would have a section in there for typography. They have a thing in there for, your site identity, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's now in the style book. So for example, if I want to change something with headings, so let's say I want to change all my headings. I want to change the typography of my headings to not be the default font. I want them to be DM Sans. So now by saving this is going to apply it across the board to my site. So I'll show you later. I don't want to kick out of this page, but that now has changed all of the fonts for the headings for my site. So in addition, if I want to look at the different blocks, so let's say I want to change all of my buttons. So all of my buttons, I want to change them to either be not rounded. I want to change the color or something. Let me click on this. Let's say we want to change the background to be something darker like that. Oops. Sorry, background color. Make it dark. That looks terrible. But then we're going to change the text. Again, these are not accessibility things. Don't pay no attention to this in that case. But as you can see now, I've changed it across the board. So all buttons now, whenever I add a new button, so everything that's already been added has now been changed to this style, and any new buttons I add to the site will now inherit that style as well. So it's cool in that sense. You can think about this. If you want to apply this, you don't have to go searching every page to do that. And again, even for blocks that you haven't used yet. So this is kind of the idea of kind of setting your styles first before you build the site. So here, even though it's not showing me all of the blocks in this view, which I find that a little bit confusing, if I want to see the other blocks, let me go back. Additional blocks, sorry, get out of the button. Here's all the other blocks. So something I may not even have used yet. So let's say I want to style the calendar or something more interesting. I want to style the column code. I want something visual that we can maybe see, a quote block here. So at this point, I can change, same thing. I can change the typography of the quote block. I can make that some ugly system font for some reason. So any of the blocks, and my understanding is, and I don't have it on this site, unfortunately, is that even blocks that are not the native Gutenberg blocks, if they support this ability, you can set the styling through this. You can set them across the board for the site. So again, your mileage may vary. I didn't get a chance to test it out with any other non-Gutenberg blocks, but that's my understanding of how this is going to work. And then, as I said, the other pieces that you normally would miss out on are things like the theme settings here. So if you want to change your site logo, your site title, this is where you'd have to go and do it now. You have to go into the style book. It's kind of makes sense, but in some ways, this is the one that sticks out to me like a sore thumb. Like, this doesn't feel like a style, like changing your site logo and your site title. But if they're going to replace the customizer, this seemed to be the place where it had to go.
Yeah, it was the same thing, like that whole, in the customizer, that whole kind of site branding area was just like, we'll put it here.
Right.
So Sue had the question, where's the quote block preview when you edit it? Now, I know the first thing is that one of the things that they added is that the what's in line in that right column is live edited, correct?
Yeah. That's exactly. So that's the thing. It's also, from a usability standpoint, it's a little strange because the quote block itself was on the text tab, but when I was changing it, I was on the design tab. So that's a good point, Sue. That the only place I could see that preview was here. This mini preview, which is fine, but maybe it's a little bit confusing because, like, oh, wait a minute, I can also see it here in this text tab. But yeah, that's a good catch.
Yeah, I imagine it'll be the type of usability fix that'll come in where, again, as they work towards this seamless, if you're over here and you need to want to see it now large on the screen, that it'll just happen versus, okay, well, I'm editing it over in styles and now let me go over to text and see where it lands there. But this is one of the things that has me intrigued about getting into the site editor. That first part about sort of that, what you're seeing, you click on it, that's what you're editing. And now with the style book and these global settings, you can kind of see it in total. It makes me comfortable with the way my mind works in terms of, okay, well, I know now that quotes are going to look that way whenever I add them. I think there's the one thing that I'm not 100% sure that you stated, and only because, again, and this is where it gets confusing for all of us. I mean, Ray and I go through this, Eagle Sue and everyone else who's gone into a level of, it can get very confusing in terms of things that are very similar that end up being different, or even, and I'll talk a little bit about, and Ray already did, about, what works and what type of theme, but this idea of making something a global style, and does it apply to everything retroactively, or is it only new things? And I think I may be wrong, unless you tested it. It may be almost both. I think if you
It's both. Yeah.
apply a block versus changing it here, I don't know. Maybe that's my question to you, Ray.
If you change it in the global styles,
yeah,
it applies globally, unless you've made a change to a similar style in a block. Then the block style changes will override the global styles.
Right.
Got it.
Or
Okay.
if you have like a CSS class or something like that, obviously that's, it's that specificity of what's gonna, what may or may not override it. So that's always drives people crazy. It's like, I'm changing something here. Why am I not seeing on my site? Well, maybe there's a CSS class that somebody else is, targeting an element.
Well, and that's one thing I don't know if I've heard anyone say so much. This is basically a visual CSS editor. Right?
It is, and which is a great segue into the other piece that's in here is, and it's funny because I think I just lost where it is. Let me go back into here.
See, global styles.
Yeah, it's under global styles, and under.
Got to click the 3 dots.
Oh, it's the 3 dots. You know exactly where I'm. Additional CSS. Yeah, there you go. So if you needed to add site-wide CSS, this is one of the places you would add it. But if you need to add CSS at a block level, I believe that is here. Sorry, I'm going a little quick. Sorry. So if you're in a specific, let's say I want to change CSS just for the button, I can actually do that inside of this setting. So this will only apply to the button blocks. If I want to change CSS site-wide,
it'll change all the button blocks.
Correct. If I want to change, let's say, some site-wide CSS, this is where you would do it. So that was, again, another thing that, from a customizer standpoint, you usually would see that someplace where you have all your site-wide CSS rules would be there. One thing I don't like, I don't know if anyone else's opinion on this CSS does not do any type of syntax checking on here. So you can type in some really bad CSS in here.
Yeah.
So if you've used the old theme editor thing, like, you're not supposed to. If you go in and edit a theme, generally it'll give you at least a bit of syntax checking. This thing doesn't do anything, so that's maybe more to come later.
And again, if you add a button somewhere else and change that button style for that button, it will override this.
Right.
So let me show one last thing, and then I'll hand it over to Peter. We can always go back to things afterwards. One other, again, this is slightly confusing too. One other way to change a style is, where did I put one of these? I probably put it underneath. If I don't have it, I'll add one. It's in here. You can also change a style if you're inside of a template. Let me add something in here. Maybe that's where I'm going to do it. What haven't I used? I hate to keep using the buttons because I'm going to screw this. I already did the buttons. I already did the quotes. What's a simple block I can change? How about a pull quote? Sure, why not?
Why not?
Sometimes they never drop. Oh, there it is. There's my pull quote. So at this point, if I change this, and I believe, let's see, this thing, could be wrong. testing. And I save this, it will apply, it will let me make the change across the, as a global change. So let me double check. I need to make sure I have that pull quote selected. So at this point on the pull quotes settings, here we go, under advanced, there's a, I already saved it, but this button now allows me, when I'm in this editor, that's another place I can save the style change and apply it globally. It's a little confusing, so I don't know. I think that's probably not the preferred way to change it. I think you should change it from the style book, not when you're inside the editor, but there you go.
But if you click on that block and then click on global styles, pull quote, click on global styles up at the top.
This one, yeah.
Now you
If I go back to my,
no, don't do that. Just go back to the block.
yeah,
The global, yeah, the quote block.
yeah. I'm on the quote block.
I don't see it in the editor. I just see it in the blocks.
Right at the bottom.
At the very bottom, styles here, it says apply globally.
Yeah, just scroll up so we can see the block.
I'm on the block. Sorry. What do you? I'm missing.
In the center content.
In your content.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, here it is. Yeah.
So now if you click on the global style icon at the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, maybe it's
sometimes it will go just to the block, the quote, pull quote block style automatically. I don't know why it didn't here.
Still needs polishing. So again, it's better, and I can come back and show more things on it afterwards. But I do like the idea a lot of that style book, sorry, of having that ability to set them all in one place. I think that's gonna be a powerful thing going forward into the future. I'm still personally, I don't think they put all the right things in the right places yet, but it'll change. I'm sure it'll improve over time. So. Peter, I'm going to stop sharing just to make it easy.
Well, there's one other thing. If you go back.
Yep, let's go back. Yep.
So if you click back to the templates and manage all templates.
Yep.
So you actually haven't changed any of the templates. You just played with them.
I have, and this is one thing.
So scroll down and no, you haven't.
Well, because I saved mine, but one thing I don't like right now is I actually did change the 404 template. I added the word oops in front of it, and it doesn't show me that I've modified it. That's
pretty odd.
Yeah, I would have expected to say, I know it says added by, I really would like something in here that says modified by. So
it does show that you modified it, only instead of the little circle, it says underneath it customized.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's new.
I didn't even catch that. My cursor right on top of it.
I was looking for the blue dot. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. The blue dot is when it's unsaved. I believe that's when something's unsaved, and that's where now you have the global that save.
Well, no, it used to be if you changed it and saved it, there was a blue dot, but now it says customized.
Customized. Yeah. Okay.
The point being that 404 template that you changed is not written to file. It's in the database. Right. So if the template that comes with the theme is updated in a future release, your 404 style will still override it because it's in the database.
Right, which is good. You're right. So that and this is a whole separate thing of a future discussion around what happens to child themes in this new world. Anyway, I don't open that can of worms. But.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And for everybody, so Eagle is also a meetup organizer, and who else on this call is? I'm just curious. Is there anyone else?
Steve Kinsey.
Who's that, Eagle?
Steve Kinsey.
Oh, Steve, yeah.
He's here.
Yeah.
I'm with the Reno WordPress meetup. And,
awesome.
We met Peter in a training meeting the other day.
We sure did. Yep. And then
you're recruiting other WordPress organizers to come to
exactly. I know I was on Eagles when he was presenting a lot of this stuff. So I know it's fresh in mind about a lot of stuff that we're talking about.
All right, all yours, Peter.
Yep. Let me grab.
And like I said, there other stuff I can go back to afterwards if people are interested in.
Let's see. I got too many windows open myself. All righty.
And see the earth. There we go.
Yeah. So
Tracy made a comment that's pretty good. In the theme editor,
yeah,
you're not editing content. You have to keep that in mind.
yes.
You're editing a template, so you're changing styles, you're changing layout, you're changing positioning, but you are not changing content. You have to edit the theme editor and go into the block editor itself to change content.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's even some things that we'll talk about that you has to do with like copying styles from block to block, but it's the style part of the block, not even if you change italics within, that doesn't change, but we'll talk about that. Yeah, keeping in mind the content versus the thing that wraps the content. I have a slide towards the end that I should have put at the top that we just keep running into. This is a topic for a lot of us. Ray, you were just talking about it. Eagle and I have talked about this. You know, Sue. You know, we talk about your theme versus all the things that are being presented as what's coming new. And in fact, a couple of the presenters I contacted, and they were like, yeah, we should, you know, I said, don't forget the majority of the people who are not using block themes at this point in terms of differentiating. So some of the things, a lot of the things that I'll be talking about are very theme dependent. So lots of them will apply to most themes, but your theme can do what, quite honestly, do whatever it wants to WordPress. So the classic themes, like a Cadence, like an Astra, like a Generate Press, are bringing in some of these things to a certain level. And I think maybe even for a follow-up meetup is the idea, and I think Eagle, you shared with it the whole how theme.json, which is this file in the back, can start introducing some of the aspects of a block theme to a classic theme. So everything that Ray just showed in terms of site editing is a block theme function and all of those tools. Some of the things that I'm going to show are universal for the most part, although not always 100% and all based on some factors. So I'm going to try to stick to the things that apply to everybody and I think make the most amount of difference. Honestly, so I think a shorter conversation, Ray, than what you had, because you're getting into the weeds where this is just like, oh, look at this new thing that I have. So you know, when we go into the content editor changes. So this is the quick overview of the key things. And again, anytime there's a new release, the list of all of the things goes deep. And the things that folks are talking about are just sort of those most impactful, most visible, you know, quality of life, make the editing experience better. But there's all kinds of things across the board that can get approved. So this list that I have, it's a short list compared to everything, but these are the kind of the main things that I think are being discussed at this point, and that I'm looking at and going, I think that makes a difference to a lot of people who are editing content. So the list is block settings. Block settings now in the sidebar. I'll be showing all of this. They use tabs, but what's nice is there's a style preview in a lot of cases where you can see what, you know, what's happening in the little box. You kind of got a little bit of that in what we just saw in the site editor. Being able to copy and paste block styles, often something that people kind of got used to with certain themes and block packages from third parties that have built that in, but now it's in core. The block inserter improvements are really good. They include a better preview, but also, and a lot of people can be really happy with this, the media library and Openverse are part of the block inserter. So that is just a make your life easy kind of thing. The list view and outline and info area where you get the list view are merged and improved. If you're not into editing using the block editor yet, because it's, you know, it's hard to change over in a lot of ways. One of the tools that you're going to find is going to be very useful, and even for folks who are using the block editor, is that list view. Being able to see the blocks and control and make sure you get to the block that you want in that list view can be such an easy way of navigating what's on your site. Distraction-free editing, one of those things that we've seen versions of, and I'll be showing that. But you know, for a writer, just knowing that this exists it might be something you go, oh, I really like that because it gets everything out of the way, and now I can just write. And then even little things like sticky positioning for root level groups. Sticky is make something stay in a certain spot. If I go to the block settings and style tabs, this is actually just all I did here was copy the from the help screen when you first load 6.2, you're going to see a bunch of things. I'm pulling out the things that affect the content editor in using the block editor for editing content. So this is the visual that you'll see when you upgrade, and it'll show you that now you can find controls you want when you need them. This is that sidebar where now you've got settings and styles. We'll show that. I just wanted to make sure I was capturing this for this presentation, so when we share it, you can kind of trigger, oh, okay, this is what we're talking about. The block inserter, that's the whole thing. We're now, you know, you get a better preview of things, and then especially when you get into the Openverse photo library and your media library is really a nice thing. That distraction-free editing. It's just a way of looking at that content, and just wanted to make sure we're capturing kind of how to get to it. That hotkey, when you first get it, you're like, okay, I'm in it now. How do I get out? You know, I'll show you using the hotkey of Control Shift / or hovering at the top of the screen. We'll look at that, and I'll come back to this statement again because it's important, the experience. And what I've done is I've loaded a few themes, and we can kind of bounce between them and see what the difference is on those. So let's get right into that demo. And what I've done is I've loaded a site. It's a beta. It's on one of my domains beta. This is what you'll see when you load, and when you first get in, you'll get this big WordPress 6.2 screen. This is where I captured those images. It shows you a lot of things, including a lot of what Ray discussed. So that is that big welcome screen. So where we're going to spend some time is in the editor. I've got a couple of posts. I've got some pages, but we'll start with just that sample page. It's messy right now, but it's just to show you. I'm going to go and I'm going to edit that page, and we're going to look at some of the things that are important here. So what's the first thing? So the fact that when you click on a block, right? So this is a standard image block. This is where we're showing on the right side now. You will see the settings are in a tab with the cog, the classic settings cog, and then the styles are using the circle with the dark and light. So now instead of having a very, very long sidebar with all your settings for a block, all they've done is separate the two sections of settings. So for an image, okay, your alt settings. So illustration of cat, and then what size, what width, and then on the style side, if you wanted to add a border, radius, all of those things. And right now I am using a block theme. I'll show you which one this is. So Ray was using 2023. If you want I'll show you the themes that I have loaded here. The one I'm using right now is called Frost. It's by Brian Gardner, who goes way back in the theme development world. You can find this at frostwp.com. It is not in the repository yet, although it will be relatively soon. So it is coming to the WordPress repository. What's nice about the Frost theme is what comes in this theme in terms of the block patterns that are included. So again, block patterns and the variety of block patterns you have are theme dependent. And that theme writer can decide whether they want to show you and offer to you all of the WordPress core themes, or if they don't have any block patterns, those will be the patterns that you see, or override it with the patterns that come with their theme. So when you select a block theme, there are options, as Ray showed earlier. So the 2023 theme is loaded right now. Active is the Frost theme. So that in effect is really just one thing in terms of what you might see that changes in the user interface is the right side where your options, your settings and your styles are going to be in 2 tabs. And depending on what block you are, you might not see that. So this here is a quote block, which is basically a box with a paragraph inside of it. And because that's all it is, that particular block doesn't need a choice between settings but when you get into other, again, images, buttons, I'm just clicking on some buttons here. Again, that's where you'll see, okay, here's the settings and here's the styling, which in this case, typography, dimensions set by a block theme. So that's one thing with the interface. In terms of copying and pasting styles, so say I wanted this paragraph now to be make the text purple. So I make the text purple, and maybe I make the let's see if I can do the background green. Oh, that's terrible. So, but let's just say I wanted that for some crazy reason. Now, what I can do here is go to my my 3 dots, go to copy styles, and then if I have another block quote, I can paste the style. So now, again, that's sort of, it's not a global style at this point, but it's an opportunity to, oh, I made that look the way I want. Let me, and this again will work for classic themes and block themes, as opposed to the global styles that are set in a block theme. So that's a nice improvement where you can copy and paste styles, so that once you get something that you like, and by the way, you can in effect with a classic style decide that you want to create a page off to the side that has a lot of the blocks and create your own style book if you're not into the block theme. So that's a place where you can style the things, and you can always copy. And once you start building off of that, then you can always duplicate a slide. For anyone who doesn't know, if you go to that block quote, and I can duplicate it and then move it somewhere else. That's a lot of my editing is often duplicating something I've done and then replacing it somewhere, whether it's using the arrows there or using the list view. So let's talk about the block inserter. So the block inserter is the blue button, top left, toggle block inserter. And now what you have is your blocks, which if you've used this, you can either click on the block to insert it, or you can drag and drop it to a place that you want it on your page. So that's how the block inserter kind of typically works. The patterns, what's nice is the organization of block patterns has improved, and using Frost, for example, Brian Gardner has created a lot of nice, he uses a black and white style, which is really good for kind of a starting point, and then you can color and style after you place things. But you get nice previews here in this sidebar of what it is that maybe you want to add this this particular call to action block that Brian created, full wide screen, that type of thing. But the block inserter under patterns makes the and again, theme dependent. this developer, Brian, created these block patterns and put them into these places. I can show you another thing. You can get for example, 2023, you'll see a different list here, and with different blocks, the core, what come with the core blocks, and any kind of variation there. But it's really nice when you kind of get to see what's available and how quickly you can build something out. And by the way, here's a block that is basically Linktree that you can do instead of paying money for. Sorry, the tree of links. I don't want to name a company, already did. But you know, this is all built in a block, which is this block, and then all the blocks that live inside of that block. You can see that by, you know, going into that list view and see how all of those things are nested. I'll spend a little bit of time there in a second. But the other thing that's nice in the inserter is, let me get rid of this block here, because this is a whole group, and it didn't want me to insert anything within that group. If I go to the inserter, what's really nice is if I go now we have a new tab called media. When you go into media, you can look at images. These are images this is in the media library that I loaded on this site. And if you have a lot, you can, you know, whatever you've titled them, you can search. I can show you that by going to the back end and showing my media library, and these are those images. But now, instead of going here or going add media and then searching, it's right here in the inserter, where I can go to media and I can look at my images and I can say, I like that guy, and I'm going to just drop them right onto my page right out of the inserter. So it takes that whole process and just kind of makes it zippy fast, which is really nice.
Hey, Peter, I'm not sure if you're going to show it, but Gene had a question about inserting media from the Openverse.
Yes, that's the next thing.
Okay.
Exactly. So now, where I am, if I go to media and now go to Openverse, Openverse is the WordPress has acquired the Creative Commons library and has packaged it as Openverse. And this is available to us to use for free. And it is a library of, I don't even know how many images, more than we can count in a day, that's for sure. And so say I wanted to look to see what, I don't even know, do they have a Shiba Inu? And they do. They have. So these are all other images that we can load right out of the media library. I mean, out of Openverse. And it does. At one point, this hot linked out to the library, and because of, like, again, privacy issues and saying, oh, you're going out to a third party, it does load those into the local library. And again, this idea, this ability to, when you click on the tab and have this side panel to easily scroll to search for things right there, it's really, really slick and really nice. And it just takes that effort that is normally required to go through not only finding, but the process of bringing things in, and just makes it that much more frictionless, which is great. So you can search that whole library. Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, Peter, I think Gene's question was, I'm not sure if you know the answer for this now, but when it pulls in the image from Openverse, is it just pulling in one file size of that image? Like, it's not, you know, let's say you're going to drop that image you just had into, I don't know, like a much smaller section or much smaller block. Is it still pulling in like the full, I guess the dimensions are 1300, 867. I know you can select and switch them, but the file size looks like it just gives you one.
Well, it's bringing in the one, but it's treating it like any other image that's been brought into your media library. So, you know, you do have a thumbnail size that gets generated at the time. There's the medium size, there's the large size, there's the thumbnail size, which is cropped. So
it seems like they've probably done some file, not compression on their side. You're not pulling in like a 4 megabyte image in from the Openverse, hopefully.
Yeah, you know, as far as I know, it's whatever is in the Openverse and whatever your settings are. So in your if you go to settings, media, and this is where out of WordPress core, these are the thumbnail, the medium size and the large size. And this is what it gets cropped to, and the original size. But then there are tools you can use, plugins, things like that, that might, even if you pull in a gigantic file, that it says the largest file I want is a certain size. So there are tools to do that. But as a matter of the practice is as if you had uploaded, it just saves you all those steps. And as we saw by looking at that image before, when it was in the media library here, the biggest that this file is right here is that's the dimensions of the kind of the raw file.
And I think the file size looks like it's pretty tiny. It's 89K. So it's,
yeah, but there's a, we'll try another one. Just, oh, and before I forget, the one thing it does do too is because of the Creative Commons, it's bringing over all of the licensing text that you should have, that credits it and all. You can edit it, and another option here is any block now in 6.2 that has a caption is an easy, just turn it on or off through this button. Interesting, it didn't save it, so that's something I just discovered because it just brought it over. I don't know now if that's gone forever or re-bringing that image, but that giving credit to through the licensing, but you can decide to not do that by hiding the caption. Let's try one more. Let's bring in Coral Reef. Oh, I thought I would have more oceany. Oh, there. Okay, so let's just say I bring this in. That looks like the full size is 1300 by 975, but it'll be an interesting experiment to see what this is in the library and what it would be to bring down.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, to derail you, but that's something we can look at afterwards.
Yeah, but that's really neat. So the list view outline info. So now what I want to show you is, so the list view, which are the three lines here. And by the way, if anyone likes the list view a lot, if you go into your three dots over here, options, and you go to preferences, you can click this toggle here for always open list view, which I now leave on. I don't show. I'm in full where I'm not showing all of my other WordPress admin menu. A lot of people really like to see that. At this point, I don't need to. I just hit, you just hit the black left corner logo to get there. But by having always open, then that list view, which I use a lot, is default on, which is great. But one of the things that you have in the list view is not only that list, but now your outline and your info is, instead of it being that little I button that was missed, it's right here in the list view itself. So now you can navigate to things to it. So this particular page doesn't have a deep hierarchy. I was playing with the sample page, but this heading is an H2. That's telling me it's an H2. The heading here in this block I brought in, text on left, media on right, is the H2. This is important for accessibility because you set the hierarchy properly. And I can show that another example if we've got time, where you get into a deeper, so you get your H2, H3 if you have submenus and things like that. So the outline, giving you an idea of characters. I think being added is time to read. It's right there, time to read. 1 minute. I think there was something else. The Kincaid readability might be there somewhere. And by the way, one of the other things, again, that gets missed is under the options. One of the other options I had to show you this real quick under preferences is also, and this is usually set on by default, but is display block breadcrumbs and use theme styles. So every once in a while I see somebody in a forum saying it looks nothing like, and I can't stand the fact that it looks so different. Well, one, that's dependent on the theme author writing the styles in a way that work on the back end and the front end. And the other thing is there is an option to use theme styles in the editor. And if this is turned off, things will look very different. So by default, it should be on. You can see kind of in the background, things change. The other thing is display block breadcrumbs. That's at the bottom of the screen. The breadcrumbs are on now. This is basically another way, like the list view, where when you're on a block, you can see at the bottom of the screen, where that block is in relationship to other things. So this is a paragraph block inside of a media text inside of a group in your page. So like any kind of breadcrumb that shows the hierarchy, you get that on the page. That's a choice there. Again, sometimes it's just a neat way to be able to say, well, let me go right to the group level. And now I want to move that group up higher. So as you kind of get used to bopping around your editor, having some of these tools that make you say, I want to grab this group. The group is all set to work. I'll show you one other thing with the group, which is a group block now has a position choice under settings, and under that you can make it sticky. Now sticky means lock it to the top. There's a lot of sticky tools out there that give you more functionality and doing things within things and all. This is starting off, it's available in core, and it's pretty, quite honestly, rudimentary. Blocks at the root level of a document, which means it can't be nested inside of something. But now if I preview this document, it's going to see it's sticky now once you reach it. So see, as I got here, this is what's kind of makes silly, because now you can see at the bottom of the screen, I'm still scrolling, but that block has been made sticky now. For some, where maybe this was a smaller call to action that you have, and now you want it to stick and stay on once you get past a certain point. You have to think in terms of the layout of your page and what makes sense, but that's the sticky block. And
I think
look at everything I have. What's that?
I think the sticky block is such that if you have it in a group and you have another group below it, it's sticky as long as you're scrolling in that group. And when you hit the next group, it'll go on up.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. I think certain columns and sections can be made sticky also, kind of like in other tools, like if you use a cadence, you can make a section sticky.
Yeah, as long as they're in some sort of container.
Yeah, exactly. If for anyone
if you want it sticky for the whole page, then you'd have to have a container that the whole page is in.
Yeah, like for example, our slide presentation, this sidebar is set because Cadence has a nice option for making sidebars sticky. So I just have a table of contents block sitting here in the sidebar, and it's sticky. So now the rest of the page is scrolling, but the sidebar just stays there until I go above it. But as I'm scrolling up, now it sticks and stays. So there's and they can be used like if you are in something and you maybe have like a heading on the left and a whole section, you can make that heading stick until something else comes in. Call to actions. You see this in a lot of pages, but it's being introduced into core with the position set to sticky. So
just one quick thing, because I think even it throws me sometimes too, because I'm hopping around different like page builders and all that. But just for beginners, I think it can be a little bit confusing sometimes if you're those different settings at different levels of like a group versus a row versus the column. If you're dropping something like, boy, I want to do this, I want to center something, I want to do something. Sometimes you need to put the block inside of another container to be able to do the thing you want to do. So that's, again, it's thinking of your pages in these like logical, divs or sections, whatever. It's like, they may not be things that you see, but there's a reason for it. And sometimes if you're looking for a property, if it's not on the block you want, maybe it's because you need to put it inside of another container, and that's where you really set the property.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you that it is the group block, which was introduced relatively recently. It's a lot like, say, a container block in Generate Press,
sections.
Section.
Yeah,
exactly. And then, say I wanted to make sure that these blocks always stayed together. I could highlight them here in the editor, or a lot of times it's a lot easier just to do it right here on the, for whatever reason, if I want to say I want to take these now, I can highlight all of them and then I can group them.
Yeah.
And once I group them, they are still their own blocks. And now in the editor, you'll see in the hierarchy that group has these things in it. And the quote is actually a quote with a paragraph in it. So you can see the hierarchy and the nesting here. And now what gets interesting is I'm moving this now as a group. Say I just move that all the way to the bottom. Or if I'm highlighting that group, I can just use, again, these up and down arrows kind of thing. So, and that's moving all of those as a unit. And because it's a group, I could set the default to sticky. So we have these, we have these options. Looking at the time, I don't need to go into the other, looking at this in classic themes so much, because most of what I showed you will work. We could play with it if anybody is interested in anything very specific. But I think that is it for the demo, and we're on wrap up.
Wrap up. All right. Well, I think with wrap up, and again, this will be kind of a free form wrap up. I don't have any slides for this, but I think the site editor piece, we've been talking about this for a while, and actually Peter and I have been splitting up these presentations intentionally or unintentionally since 5.9. He's doing the block editor stuff, which is the fun stuff. You'll see I'm doing the full site editing, the site editor stuff, which is more of good to know for most people. I would say the site editor has, in my opinion, has reached a point where you want to start playing with it. Again, I keep thinking back to what Gutenberg was like back in 2018. For a lot of people, myself included, as soon as Gutenberg got really released in the wild, it was a little bit different than site editor, but a lot of people, myself included, immediately loaded the classic editor back on. We're like, we want nothing to do with this thing. I want to just do things my old way, forget about this thing, call me later. Site editor, it's probably going to be introduced more gradually to people. In fact, some people probably won't see it for quite a while until you either use a theme that is a block theme, or the theme that you're using, like Cadence, etc., starts to migrate things into what looks like the site editor. So, that's that. We've been saying this for the past couple meetups. We're talking about releases. You don't need to worry about it right now, but I think start getting familiar with it. And again, load one of these block themes in all your spare time on another site, and just start getting familiar with some of the concepts, because they're not going away. And in fact, I think there's some really great stuff going on there. And it's almost a shame that, I'd say, the majority of themes right now, you're not going to see this, as they continue to innovate on it, as opposed to Gutenberg. Gutenberg was something that was in many ways much more public facing. This is something I think is going to take a while to the theme developers start to incorporate it more into their themes. But it's out there, 6.2, no longer beta, the site editor. But I think the things Peter was showing are probably the ones that people are going to see immediately, some immediate improvements. So,
yeah, this is real quick. I'll show you that right on the screen here. This is I just kind of turned on the Cadence theme, and in the inserter here, now the block patterns are not what was being shown in Frost, because those were part of the theme. These are kind of more course specific. I think, yeah, they are, because these look more like 2023, because when you load the Cadence block collection, they treat patterns a little bit differently. They have the Cadence library, and you'll have an extra box up here for doing kind of something similar, but treated differently. So again, very, very important if you're on a theme, and I'd love to at some point poll everybody in which themes they have and see. You might go back to your site and go, nothing looks like, and I say this almost every meetup, nothing looks like what you showed. And it's like, well, some elements could be different based on your theme. Some could not even be available to you, depending on. So there's a lot of dependency on that theme. But you could show, this is using Cadence, but the list view, the outline.
Did they say? And again, if people have questions about anything tonight's topic or anything beyond that, feel free to unmute yourself, ask them, or put it in the chat window. But I'm curious, because I know Peter and I were talking about this earlier. as you were doing that Cadence event, has Cadence started talking about what their roadmap is for embracing some of the site editor stuff? Did they mention that?
Yeah, they did. And is Sue still on the call? Because she's
Yeah,
kind
she
of
dropped.
okay. Because Sue talks to them a lot too, but they are not. They are looking at how to transition into pulling in. I think look forward to maybe that hybrid approach. They kind of said, well, look how long it took the block editor to really get up to speed.
Yeah.
It's nothing that they're looking to do in the near term, but it's definitely, it kind of has to be on the roadmap because as WordPress changes. But
it's going to be tough because in some ways for them, it's almost, they're not so far, they're far ahead of it noticeably. So for them to kind of say suddenly, oh, we're going to start using this, what I showed, it's a step backwards, especially if you're a paid Cadence Pro user. I wouldn't want to use that experience. And I'm thinking, and they offer a lot more like conditional hooks and conditional template things. That stuff hasn't even been talked about as far as I'm aware of with the site editor yet, but
yeah,
at some point.
exactly. I'm curious, Eagle, did you want to just quickly talk a little bit about what you've learned about theme JSON and how it affects certain themes? And of course, if people have questions, I don't mean to.
Well, the only thing I think what you're referring to is there are now, as of 6.1, certain block properties, like the image block has border and radius properties, but those are only available in a block theme that has the theme.json file. However, if you go into 2023 and copy the theme JSON and copy that to, say, generate press root, the root in the template section in the generate press folder, and copy that theme.json to that file, then those properties become available in the generate press or the cadence or whatever, because core WordPress now picks up theme.json in the root of the theme.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense for everyone. So theme.json is literally a file, a text file. You can open it and read it, that WordPress uses to control a lot of the styling of things and all. And this is where I think we're going to see with what are going to be called hybrid themes, are themes that may still use the customizer and a lot of the things that we're used to in our themes, but start making sure that we're bridging the gap to what's available into block themes and all. And again, I don't know, I don't think it's going to be universally a hybrid theme is going to be only this and this and this, as much as an opportunity for somebody who makes a theme to say, these are the things that I am going to put into my part of the theme, and these are the things that I'm opening up to the the site editor aspect of WordPress 6.2 and on. So yeah.
Well, the interesting thing is that even though you add this theme JSON to classic theme and you get the additional parameters for certain core blocks, it doesn't turn on additional features. There's a whole section of theme block themes that's called additional features, and I haven't quite figured out how to activate that yet. But it isn't activated just by dropping the theme.json in. It will pick up the core parameters, but it doesn't pick up these additional features. So still playing with that.
I'm wondering if there's opportunities for new plugins that we're going to see out there for some of the stuff, something that makes that happen, or who's going to come out with a library of a navigation block styles, a snippet library of styles, because in a lot of page builders, you're used to like, oh, I can bring in and I can style my menu this fancy way. And if you're seeing a lot of the sites that are coming out of block themes, they can initially present themselves as very, very simple. I mean, there's some things that are out there like the I can't remember, but
so here's a feature. If you're in a block theme, and you create a pattern, save it as a pattern file and drop it into the patterns folder, it will automatically show up in your block inserter. But if you're on the classic theme, even with a theme.json, that doesn't happen.
Right.
Even if you put the file there. So
That's where I use a plugin.
I haven't figured out how to make that happen. But
Yeah.
interestingly enough, WP Engine is fixing to release a plugin called Pattern Manager.
Yep.
So I'm waiting to see if Pattern Manager will actually add the patterns into the classic theme with the theme JSON. So that'll be interesting to look at.
I've used plugins like Blockmeister and a couple others that you create them basically over off to the side. It's a custom post type in effect, and it does show up in the inserter, which is good. Cadence, like, maybe part of another meetup will show this whole slide presentation works in such a way that that with the Cadence cloud, you can save something up, and I can share these slides with anybody who has Cadence and the block patterns and their block collection, and link to clouds out there, and that shows up as a library choice. So that's where they're not in the inserter, but they have their own little library button, and you can add other people's block patterns that they've sharing through clouds, the Cadence cloud. So it's really, really interesting where, we're at this point, and we could do a whole nother presentation on just let's build an entire site by simply dragging and dropping block patterns.
Right.
It really is something. Anyone else have?
Any other questions? I know we have around like 12 minutes left. Any other general questions about people's? Doesn't have to be the topic tonight. I'm curious. So, has anyone else played around with any of these? I know it's kind of beta, so you'd have to have a kind of a demo site anywhere besides folks who are talking here. No one's been brave enough. I mean, you'll see it on next week, and as always, we say back up your sites and all that. And and actually, that release candidate 3, I didn't notice that, Peter. Did you have RC2 or did you have release candidate 3?
I had 2.
3.
Yeah.
Me too. 3 came out today.
Yeah, did it come out today? I think we're on 2.
Yeah, it's out now.
Yeah.
My advice to anybody is create a staging site or a local site, use local WP, and update that first, and play with, or create a staging site of your production site, and then do the update and see if anything changes, because this is a significant enough change that you just want to be careful with it. And it'll probably update. A lot of sites are set to auto update. So just make sure you have backups of all your sites before the 28th. That's my advice.
Right.
Make sure you do a backup of everything on the 27th.
Well, maybe in our meeting next month, people have a little chance to use it hands-on. We'll find out what everyone's experience is like using it.
And if there's any, I think if
I'm excited, like you said, just the usability stuff and the block editor side of things. It just seems like it makes sense. I mean, a lot of, again, page builders are like that anyway, of having the styling, separate from the other options. Just having those different tabs makes it, I think, a little bit easier to navigate your properties on a block. So I think that's a great improvement. I'll tell you what, I don't see any questions in the, let me double check. I don't see any questions.
I do want to mention, so Nicole was nice enough to volunteer her site to do a quick accessibility look. I don't know if we'll have enough time to do it. Nicole, do you want me to do a quick show the page?
Yeah.
Are you okay? Are you okay with that? Because there's some issues. I can show you what your initial issues are. And then okay, ready, everybody?
I'm going
to let me bring that page over, and thank you for sharing that. And
you're welcome.
An important thing. And this is by no means a super comprehensive, but this is where you can start looking at, and we can keep coming back and chip away at some of the things. I'm going to share my screen.
Yeah, I can see it now.
That's your site, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the first things that I do when I come to a site that you should do is just start hitting the tab key.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Navigating through, and I'm hitting the tab key, and you can see at the bottom left of the screen here,
Yeah.
it is going from spot to spot. But you can't see where you are. So that's probably the number one, kind of initial challenge with accessibility. Now, let me do this real quick, because one of the things that I found while I'm doing this, and I'm showing people kind of like some of the initial techniques that I use, is I kind of want to take a look behind the scenes of what it is. And I think you're using Genesis, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So I bought the theme from 17th Avenue,
Yep.
and I don't know if I messed something up or if it was their theme and that's how it was built.
So when I went to the theme that I think you're on, and so there's
It's
Genesis
Harper.
themes. It seemed to work okay in their demo, and it doesn't work on yours. Now, that could
Okay.
be from any number of factors, including, for example, your top bar with you can add a plugin and it could change things, it could break things. So
Okay.
one of the first things to do, and I know this sounds like a pain, but with something like that, it's, especially if you paid for it, and if they have support, is go back and say, my accessibility, the ability to tab through and see where I'm at, to see that focus point,
Right.
is not working. Can you take a look and see, is it something in the theme, or is there a conflict?
Okay.
You should want to fix that, because
Okay.
it's such an important thing. Yeah, so you're looking, it looks like you're using
Yeah.
the
Yep.
child theme.
Yes.
And this tool that I use typically does a good job of showing me things. And if I tab through here, I get my skip to main content. I can see it's not super, and this is quite honestly something that you'll find with, and forgive me, but they get labeled and sold as like more of a feminine style, where you get the beiges and the grays and all, and those are very often, it's hard on accessibility in terms of the contrast settings, because they're pretty, they're calming, they're all of the things that you want, but they're not necessarily super accessible, because it's hard to see. This is, this
So
light.
does the brighter pink help that? Because I did change that to the brighter pink.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll show you one quick tool that you can use. I don't know if you're using, well, it's pretty much any browser at this point, but if you're using, for example, Chrome,
Yes.
with Chrome, you can get an extension. One of the easiest ones to use is Wave. It's
Okay.
a repository. I can show you this real quick. Wave extension Chrome. And, or you could just go online. Now that I think about it, so this is it's loaded for me in Chrome. If you go to the Chrome web store, but you can also do, and I can't remember.
Yeah, no, that's the accounting app software.
I can't remember what it is. All of a sudden, I'm drawing a blank. It's Wave Wing, because I'm so used to using. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can use this tool, which is wave.webaim.org.
Okay.
The extension just makes it easier to kind of click on something you're on, and so when we have that, and I click the click, it's giving me. Yeah, it's giving me, okay, 17 errors, 23 contrast errors. So I'm pretty much going to say that you've probably improved on some of that by looking at the difference. But what's nice about the Wave tool is when you go into the details, it starts getting into the specific things. Like if we look at just the contrast errors, it's going to, as you click through each one, it's going to show you, your site's pretty big, and with the drop down, some of the things are going to get in the way, quite honestly. But it's going to give you an idea of where the issues are. Very low contrast, and this is a contrast tool where you can start seeing, okay, I'm looking at something, say I'm looking at here. When you
So
click
the
on,
white on the pink is not good?
so it's showing right now for large text, you pass the AA standards, not the AAA standards. And it's literally, so the white on pink, honestly, the pink is just not quite dark enough.
Yeah.
So change it to here. Now you're going to start passing, if you see these numbers here.
Oh,
Yeah. And you kind of see how it right around there, that's going to
yeah.
give the pass color. And AA pass is you know, is
If
great.
I changed it to black and white, does that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
Pass.
although interestingly enough, there's another issue when you have too much contrast, but you'd rather have contrast than not. But you know, you could still have color, but it's like, see if you change that now to, and here's what's really nice about the tool too. It's actually showing you what it would look like. So if say you were,
Yeah.
well, now I say what's over here. Don't click on something because it'll reload the page. But the wave tool will walk you through a lot of these things with the contrast errors. In terms of you have one image missing alternative text. The form labels, that ends up being a lot of things. A lot of times it is, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to see high enough because of the drop down. Let's see. No, these are very often social media label tools will have an issue because they won't be labeled correctly.
So in the beginning, I thought that my alt text was supposed to have dashes in between the words. So I'm in the process of updating that because I know that it's just supposed to be a space. So I don't know if it's picking up because probably half of my images have that issue that I've been fixing
Yeah.
as we go.
So when I was looking at your images, one of the things that you want to, if something is already a link, for example, you don't want to put in your alt text link to the thing, because a screen reader will literally read link to the link, and then the image will say link to, and it gets, if you ever listen to somebody in a screen reader, it's overwhelming.
Do I have that?
You do in a couple of places. So I have another thing that I use here. This is a bookmarklet that will list the images, and this shows the images in the alt text right there. So like this, for example, that should just be like, you know, your name sitting at a computer,
Right.
So you basically want somebody to go, okay, I know what's on this page. It's you know, I know a lot of these are okay, but something that's a little bit more, and products are tough because
like I don't even know what to put for that because it's like a coffee table. It's like, am I describing every single like coffee table and console table and desk? Like, is that doing?
So in that case, you would want to simplify, because somebody's going to ultimately go to a product area too. So, you know, to be able to say gray chaise sectional sofa. Even this is actually pretty good, right? So that when you get into the comma,
Yeah.
Now, this might be as simple as a collage of modern furniture.
Oh.
Right. So that idea of not overwhelming, just think if somebody were to read all of this to you every time you saw an image, which is exactly what's happening.
Right.
Something that is just like a gray couch.
Right.
You know, might be, or a gray sectional couch with chaise, you know, that type of thing. So think of friendly, informative text for your alt text.
Okay, I didn't even know, like, I have that in there. Click for more info. I put that into the image.
So my guess is because of where that is that is a function of that carousel. So down
here.
So you're probably linking to something, and that carousel might be automatic.
I'm linking to the actual, like, if you click on that, you'll go to like CB2, their product page.
Yeah, exactly. So now this, the reader will know that that's a link, so you wouldn't want to have clicked to. Now the question is looking at, well, what is this, and what's,
so that's from the affiliate. So that's from like reward style, where it's their affiliate like widget.
Yeah.
that basically is their like carousel that then goes back to like, you know, West Elm or CB2 or whatever the product is.
Yeah, and here's the
You
challenge
not
with
have
that.
control
One
of
is
it,
you don't have
yeah.
direct control.
Yeah.
And
Right.
sometimes, and I'll tell you, there is a we'll share the link. It was on our last meetup, which is online, where in fact one happened last night where it was a live demonstration of doing a screen reader, doing an accessibility analysis, and this looks like one of the things that may be a trap. And what I mean by once you get in there, now you start tabbing through it, and then it, oh, not too bad. It got right out. It only showed it. It's not like it went to all of these, but I've seen people where they all of a sudden they get caught in a loop and they can't get out of it. So again, all of those types of things. This seems like as a widget, you're kind of, you know, if you want it, you're kind of at the mercy of what they do. You might want to let them know, hey guys, can you modify your alt text just to say what the image is, because the click is going to come through.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do here is, yeah, fix everything, but just start minimize, look for the things that are definitely in your control, that you can really look at. I was
So I
looking
should really be looking at like the errors, the contrast errors. The contrast errors is more the color issues.
Yeah, that's it's more about color, and that's where again where you go into the, this will show you that this
Okay.
here built in will kind of show you like that blue on that white. So it's showing you what's the foreground color, what's the text, for example, what's the background color, what's the button color. So if I click on this button, no, don't click on the button. Click on the next to the button. That'll give you that'll let you know what you can. So if I click on that, it's giving me the specific. There's even, you can even look at the level of the code that's telling you, okay, the main thing is to look at something like this contrast tool here and start working on the color. Like say if you went to right there and said, oh, you know what, that button is still attractive to me, but now it passes the AA standard for normal text, this size text white on that color.
Am I trying to get the AAA also to pass, or
you AA is fine. For AAA is like, yeah, I mean that's, but on this type of site, you know, if you're a college, if you're taking government money and all those things, and even the government now doesn't, they don't enforce the AA standard. And these standards are more of a target in the most part anyway.
okay.
So if you could get to looking at passing things like contrast at that AA standard, then you're in good shape. You're definitely
Okay.
And there were some suggestions too, maybe just making the text either black or bold or something too may also make a big difference.
Oh, like if on the pink, if I made the text black.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or bolded it, for example. Things that it looks at are things like, okay, that size text on that background, so the large text passes earlier. Right. So it's telling you that. But you know, again, keep in mind an old guy like me who has tired eyes, who, you know, when I see light gray on lighter gray, you know, sometimes the only way I can read it is to literally take my mouse and highlight things.
Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of the other errors here, when we go into the details, missing alt text is only one missing form labels. So somewhere on here is a form, and form labels are important. And oh, I know. So again, I know we're going long, but where people get into a lot of trouble is this. That's interesting. Are these widgets also that are brought in?
So that's from the active campaign, and that's like I click on their
right,
like, you know, it pulls up, it lives on active campaign, and then it's their plugin that I just click whichever form it is.
Yeah.
So are their forms coming up bad?
Yeah. Quite honestly. And this is again not unusual. And one of the things in accessibility are, you know, using a placeholder for a form without that form being labeled, that's an accessibility issue. So, you know, if I come over there, so that looks nice for a sighted person. Oh, I put my first name here. But that is not technically accessible because that placeholder text is not the label for the form, nor, and once it goes away, you know, cognitive issues, we talk, you know, all the levels.
So so that's on their end, that
Yeah.
The fact that it should be what, like black in there and it should stay until the person
Well,
types?
and technically, yeah, where it should be, it's a first name above it as a label for that field, email address above it. So,
Oh,
you know what I mean? And again, one of the problems we get into is, well, I don't like that design. I love this sleek design. It's like, well, okay, but there's a hit on accessibility there. There may be more coding things that could be done, but in this case, it's on them. And
I might be able to, I have to look, because that might have been an option. I probably didn't pick it because you're right. I probably was like, I don't like that,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I'll
exactly.
see
Often
if
it
that's,
is. Yeah, often
Okay.
it is. And that's the approach to take, is to chip away, is to,
okay.
you know, get a few of these colors, and all of a sudden the numbers of some of the issues, like this is interesting too, right? I don't know if that's my browser. I don't know if that happens.
Yeah, I don't know why that is
Yeah.
showing over there.
Yeah, when I scroll it down here, it's like it wants to roll it over into this side, and then, but it's not. So, but again,
Yeah.
that's the widget. That's some coding there on their side.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of the quick thing. What you can, like I said, what you can do is you can take your page, go over to wave.webaim.org if you didn't want to load the extension.
Okay.
What's interesting is, and this will happen too, there's a lot of different tools that you'll use that'll have different numbers here. And there's a lot of reasons why those numbers, like how that site brought it up into theirs, and maybe they're not bringing the drop down that I saw on my page. And there's a lot of factors. Everything is an indicator of what you should be looking for. And very often, once you start fixing some things, you end up fixing a lot of things. Like if you get that pink white contrast, the way all of a sudden,
Yeah, that's like a one like I just have to change the color in the theme and it should change it everywhere.
yeah, and these 39 errors might go down to 0 errors.
Okay.
I hope that
And then
helps.
I'll
I know we went
contact them
over.
about the tabbing.
Yeah, that's the first thing to try, is the tabbing.
Okay.
In that case, I would go back to the developer of the theme.
Okay.
They might tell you, and Ray, what am I going to say? Did you turn off all your plugins and turn them back on and see if any plugin is breaking something? That is a troubleshooting way. I don't know if you can make, you can make a copy of this or staging or whatever, but that's one of the things.
This is being recorded, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
let us know next month, Nicole.
Yeah,
If you
we'll
start fixing things, we'd love to hear more about like what you
can
still have
keep coming
left and what
back.
your experience was.
and maybe
Okay.
some other people will be brave too.
Yeah, no, this was super helpful. I knew I had issues because I was trying to do things as you were teaching them, and I'm like, this is not working online. So, yeah.
I'll take another look and see if there's other standouts, and I'll drop a note and respond.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
That
All
was great.
right.
All right, we're out of time. Thanks everyone for hanging around a little bit extra here. And like I said, definitely next month, we'd like to hear, bring your questions as always, but bring your experiences with WordPress 6.2. We'd like to know what everyone else thinks once you get a chance to play with it hands-on a bit more. So thanks everyone again for joining us. Have a good night. And again, we'll hopefully see you again next month. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.